Good evening. All right, tonight we're going to be starting with the period of Moses' life that he's going to find most troubling. He's already spent a lot of time with Pharaoh, and he's done this for good reason. He's had to get Pharaoh and the Egyptian people ready or to believe in God. But this is not the only people that he's had to get to believe that, because the Israelites were in bondage for 430 years approximately. They had the opportunity to do their sacrifices, to know who God was, but in 430 years, it's hard to understand how you can have that faith. They had no leader to come along and actually show them what God was trying to tell them to do. He had a plan of restoration for them, but he did not get a chance to he didn't have people there that could lead the people of Israel. So, God did not talk with the Israelites as he wanted. So Moses had to use the 10 plagues as a way to get the Israelites to believe that A, there was a God, 2, that he was the only God, and that he would be leading them to where he wanted them to go. They knew that God told them a long time ago that he would be sending them out into the land of milk and honey. But they had no idea how this was going to happen. God is now getting to talk to Moses, who would then in turn talk to the people. So he had a big job on his hands. Fortunately, by the time the 10 plagues had come along, the Israelites knew that God was the person that they were talking to. So when Moses started talking to the Israelites, they listened, which is a good thing. And it was before he got a chance to, when Moses told the people of the 10 plagues, and the last one was that he was going to send the death angel into the whole area, that they were to take the blood of a lamb, put it on their doorpost, take the rest of the lamb and have it. They were to take all their bread that they had made and put it away. They were just to have unleavened bread that they could have to eat on their journey out. They were not to have any leavened bread at all. But he did something unusual too. God told the people of Israel to go to the people of Egypt and ask for their gold and their silver and their clothing. And God gave the people of Israel, or Egypt, I'm going to get this back and forth, the people of Egypt relented and gave them everything they had asked for and needed. So, but this is where it all starts, in that God needed to talk with Moses directly now. Moses is going to be their leader. But because they have been in bondage for 400 years, they just don't have that much faith. They know what they see, but they just don't have the faith to go along with it. And isn't that the way we are today? Isn't that we can't walk out that door sometimes, even on a weekly basis when we come here to worship service. We can't go out that door without having our thoughts changed, having our minds put on where we're going to eat, what we're going to wear, what we're going to do that afternoon, anything, where we're going to be that week, how much work we're going to be doing, or how much money we're going to make. It all comes down to the faith that we have in God. So it's been going on ever since, even before Moses, but that's what we can look at today. But the other thing he did that he wanted everybody to remember too is that God wanted Moses, he wanted the people of Israel, I'm going to get this back and forth. He wanted the people of Israel to consecrate their firstborn, either animal or male, to consecrate it to him so that they would be able to understand what it's all about. They are also to remember that this is a Passover. And there's two words here that come to mind, or is in Scripture that comes to mind here. One is that they are to remember the Passover, but it's also called the Feast of the Unleavened Bread. And they are to remember it in the Hebrew language, the first month of their calendar year, which is Abib. And that means to be fresh, to be new, and of young ears in the Hebrew language. Now, in the translations, we're going from Hebrew to Greek to Roman to Latin, and also here. So the months of the year are different for each one of these different generations. So when that is in our calendar years, it's hard to determine. But they just say that's the first month of their year. Now, again, we've got 10 tribes that Moses is going to be dealing with. These 10 tribes have grown in number and in value with their livestock over the 400 years. God did not disturb the area that they were in, Gideon. When the Hebrew people were there, they did not get disturbed for any of the plagues. So everything went on just like normal for them. They saw what was going on, but they did not have anything to do with it. So when Moses asked them to leave, or wanted them to leave, they went with him. They knew that he was going to take them out of Egypt into the Promised Land. Now, I didn't get a chance to make out a map or anything, but if you can picture the Mediterranean Sea going across, and Egypt is right at the end of the Mediterranean Sea. The Red Sea comes down alongside of it, and then you've got Asia Minor that sits next to it. The shortest route that Moses could have taken was right along the Mediterranean Sea itself, but it would have taken them directly into where the Philistines are. So, God directed them out, and then he made them turn back towards the Red Sea itself. Let's see. He had them, I'm in for Exodus chapter 14 now. The Lord spoke to Moses, saying, "Speak to the children of Israel, that they turn and camp before Pi-Hahiroth, between Migdol and the sea, opposite Baal-Zephon. and you shall camp before it by the sea. For Pharaoh will say to the children of Israel, they are bewildered by the land, and the wilderness has closed them in. Then I will harden Pharaoh's heart so that he will pursue them, and I will gain honor over Pharaoh and over the army, that the Egyptians may know that I am the Lord. And they did so. Well, this started the grumbling that the Israelites had with Moses. Moses knew where he was going, but they did not. They also had a pillar of fire, or pillar of smoke in the daytime, and a pillar of fire at night, so that they could see in the nighttime, and they would have this wall, as it were, between the pursuing army and the escaping Israelites. This came to help them when Pharaoh caught up with them. Pharaoh did catch up with them in, let's see, where did he? He overtook them, but when they were camping beside Pi-hahiroth and before Baal Zephon. Okay. The angel of the Lord also was with the Israelites too, in that as they traveled out, the Egyptians were not able to gain access and overthrow the Israelites. They were able to get where they needed to be without fear. But they did fear because they could see the Egyptians. And the Egyptians, all they thought was, we're going to be annihilated. We're not going to be able to make anywhere. We've got the sea in front of us. We've got the desert beside us, and we've got the army behind us. We can't go anywhere. Well, God knew better. God was with them. And God was the one that so they grumbled to Noah, or gee, many crickets. They grumbled to Moses and told them, why did you have us do this? Why did you bring us out here so that we would be killed and overthrown like this? We could have been back in our own houses. We were slaves, but we could have had something to eat, something to drink, and we would have been happy. God said, be still and go forward. He wasn't angry with them then. He said, go forward. Then he told Moses, raise your hands, raise your staff, and make the sea part. And by the way, while I'm thinking about it, if anybody here hasn't been in the area where the library is, the staff here has done a great job in showing you kind of what this wall of water looks like. So after this lesson, I don't want to have you do it now. If you while you're going down to get your cookies, go down and take a look at what the water looks like, and you can understand what's going on. Well, the pillar the pillar of smoke was with them during the daytime, and it held the Egyptians back until the Israelites were able to get across the water on dry land. This was solid enough for them to take all of their animals and all of themselves. They didn't have any chariots or anything, but they were able to take all their animals across without any problems whatsoever. When they got across, the angel of the Lord let the Egyptians go. They went through thinking that they were going to be able to do the same thing, and it came to pass that the angel loosened the wheels on Pharaoh's chariots, made them unstable so that they would fall apart. They would be able to sink down in. They were very heavy chariots. They were sinking, and they just weren't able to get through there. They got across, or they got in, Pharaoh's army got into there, into the water, and Moses lowered his staff, and the water came back and killed everybody. Pharaoh was part of that army. I think someone asked me that last night. Was Pharaoh killed? Pharaoh and his army were killed in this water. When they came across the water, Moses sang a song that, and I wanted to reference another part of this so that you'd understand what this was. It was for their deliverance. It was done as a hymn. It was, some people say it was done as half of the people sang one part of it, half of the people sang the other part of it. But in any case, here we go. The song relates to the fact that the Lord is highly exalted because he had hurled the horses and his riders into the sea. They give praise to the Lord for who he is. He is my strength, the song and salvation. He is my God and a warrior. They give praise to the Lord for what he has done. He has cast Pharaoh's chariots and army into the sea. They give praise to the Lord for who he is. He is majestic in power, overthrowing his enemies. They give praise to the Lord for what he has done. He has used the waters and the wind to defeat Pharaoh's army. They give praise to the Lord for who he is. He is greater than all the gods, majestic in holiness, a worker of wonders. Now you got to remember that these are the same people who have been in bondage, and they see this, and they're wondering about it. They understand that this was something that they had never seen. Nobody's ever seen this before, but they still have not come to the understanding that God is who he says he is. And he's caused the earth to swallow his enemies, and he has brought his people to his holy habitation. The second part of this emphasizes the results of what the Lord has done. The consequences for Israel. They will be guided to the Lord's holy habitation. They will have consequences for the nations. The Philistines, the Edomites, the Moabites, and the Canaanites will be afraid. The consequences for Egypt, for Israel, they will be planted in the place God has chosen for them. And their conclusion is, let God be praised forever. This story was told all around for many generations. In fact, when you read David, the book of David, they talk about this same story and what has happened to the Israelites, to the Egyptians. But the people are not satisfied. They're going on. They start into the valley, into the wilderness, and in 3 days, they run out of water. They run into a lake or a river, which is called Mara. And Mara means, it was bitter. Mara means bitter. Well, Moses again talks to God. God finds a tree or a branch. There's different recitations here. But he finds a tree and puts the tree in the water, and it becomes sweet. The people have water to drink. that still does not keep them from fussing. They still want more. So now they say, well, now we have nothing to eat. All right. So Moses talks to God again, and God tells them, all right, I'm going to send what they call manna, which is, the name means in Hebrew, what is it? It's a round cookie type, and it's got honey and honey in it. That is very, very good to eat. But he told them, you're only going to be able to take as much as you need for one day. Well, you know how people are. They're going to take whatever they can get, and because they said, well, I'm going to keep it for a couple days. If they kept it for a couple of days, it turned sour, and it was stinking. So they found out quickly that if they didn't do what God said, that they would have consequences. There again, that's what our problem is today, is that we want to do more than what we're just told. The Bible itself is very simple to understand. It's very simple to comprehend, and it's very simple to do. But people just want to be stubborn. They want to do what they want to do because they think what they got is better than anybody else. The only time that they were given an extra day, by the way, they were told to get let me find the word, Ophrah. Let's see. Omer, that's what it is, yeah. An omer, which is about 2 quarts. They tell you what it is in liters, but we don't use liters, so yeah. And they were given the manna in the morning, and they were also given quail at nighttime. And again, they were told just to take enough for the people in your family. They learned that lesson pretty quick once they found out that all the rest of it, what God said they were going to have to do. So that kept them quiet for just a little bit, but it wasn't enough. They started again, and let's see. He wanted to make sure that they understood about getting 2 days worth so that they would be able to rest on the Sabbath. There are many people today that use Saturday as a Sabbath. And in the Old Testament, that was fine. But what we have in the New Testament tells us that on the first day of the week, we are to worship God in spirit and in truth. I guess I forgot to tell you that when they came out of Egypt, when they came out of the Red Sea, Miriam, the prophetess, Aaron's sister, took a tambourine and started singing with it. And she mimicked the songs that Moses was singing for rejoicing unto the Lord. God used the tambourines, he used all kinds of instruments in the Old Testament. He even had a part of the tribe of Levi that was used, that do all of the singing and making the melody. He had some of them to sing, some of them that were using different instruments. But that when the New Testament comes along, we are to sing and make melody in our hearts. And that's what the difference is between what he's telling these people or what he's letting these people do than what we are able to do now. For they did not have even the writing that Moses was doing, because he was living this. He wasn't writing about it. He wrote it later in Exodus. He wrote the first 5 books of the Old Testament. But because we have the New Testament now, we can understand, we can read, and we can know that God wants us to make melody in our hearts. So that is how and why some of this goes on in the Old Testament. I've had people talk to me about that, where they want to take some of the things from the Old Testament and bring it over to the New Testament. Again, they're wanting to do what they want to do instead of what God is telling us to do. This is a little bit farther than I thought I was going to be able to get tonight. This is great. So Moses takes them farther on the journey, and he starts into the valley of sin, which is what they call it. And again, they run out of water, and again, Moses has asked God to find water for them. Moses was told at this time to take his staff and strike a rock, which he does. He doesn't do anything bad this time. So he strikes the rock. He's still patient. But he does ask, how long am I going to have to deal with this, with these people who are always grumbling? How long am I going to have to deal with this? God just tells him that you just must be patient. So Moses strikes the rock and gives them pure and clean water to drink. And they were able to feed their flock. And you got to remember that every night they're getting quail that comes into their camp, and they're also getting, in the morning, they're getting this manna from heaven that comes down and right after the dew and gives them all of the nourishment they need every single day. But that's not what they want. They want to go back to Israel. They want to go back to where they were, back into bondage again, back into slavery. All because that's all they knew. They did not have the faith that they needed to know that God was doing what he was doing, and he was going to take them to the promised land, which he said he was going to give them. And he was going to fight their battle for them. They didn't have that faith. They go a few days, few weeks in the wilderness, heading out towards Mount Sinai. And Moses' father-in-law, along with his wife and children, meet up with him. And Moses, at the time that they met together, he saw Jethro is his name. He was a man of God. He was a prophet. And what he saw was Moses sitting in a place, and all the people who had problems, big or small, were all bringing their problems to him, and he was dealing with them. He was a judge to all the people that were coming before him. They would explain what their problem was, and he would make a decision one way or the other. Jethro said, "Why don't you take people from each tribe people of knowledge, people of wisdom, people of age, and let them do this. Let them be the judges of the 10,000s, of the 1,000s, of the tens, so that you, the only thing you're supposed to do, you're supposed to be the leader of this tribe. You're supposed to be the one thinking about what to do, and you're supposed to be talking to God. And he said, and so Moses did that. He thought that was a great idea. So he got the people that he needed. He made them judges over the small things, and if it was too big to handle, then he was the one to make the decision on the large matters. But he's leading them, God is leading them towards Mount Sinai. And this is where I stop. I have got pretty much everything taken care of. Does anybody have any questions? Does anybody have any thoughts, grumblings?
I don't begin the passage lesson tomorrow, but it's interesting. Paul alludes to what you told us tonight in 1 Corinthians chapter 10, and deal with it and as the type of Christ and our obedience to him. You know, that's Exodus 14 verse 30. Speaking of Moses and coming through the Red Sea with the waters on both sides, the clouds above them, they were immersed in the cloud and in the sea. And Paul says, "More brethren, I would not have you to be ignorant concerning those our fathers who were under the cloud and passed through the sea, were all baptized under Moses in the cloud and in the sea. Did all eat the same spiritual meat, did all drink the same spiritual drink, but they drank of that rock which followed them, that rock was Christ. But with many of them God was not well pleased, for they were overthrown in the wilderness. Now these things were our example, to the intent we should not lust after evil things as they also lusted. Neither be idolaters, as some of them were, as it is written, the people sat down to eat and rose up to play. Neither committed fornication, as some of them committed, and fell in one day 320,000. Neither let us tempt Christ, as some of them also tempted, and were destroyed of the serpents. Neither murmur ye, as some of them murmured, and were destroyed of the destroyer. All these things happened unto them for example, they were written for our admonition, on whom the end of the age are come. Therefore, if you think of these standards, take heed,
Lest ye fall.
lest ye fall."
Absolutely. There's a lot of lessons that we can learn from it. When you read this, just read it through. A lot gets skipped over, a lot gets missed. Just like when Moses was taken, just before he took these people out of Egypt, he wanted to make sure that they had family ties. They were part of a family. This was not just, he wasn't just taking a crowd of people. It was the family of God that he was dealing with. And he wanted to make sure that they understood this. A lot of them still didn't. A lot of them went through their whole lives. That is why when he got to Mount Sinai, he had to let them walk another 40 years because they didn't understand. And they didn't tell their children to understand. And that's some of what we're instructed to do, asked to do, commanded to do in the New Testament, is to make sure that our children know what it is, what God wants of us. If we're going to be Christians, then we must know what we must do, but we also must teach it to our children so that they know. And that's half of what I got out of this lesson was what was missed when I first read it a time or two. It's amazing how a lot of the small things get overlooked sometimes. Does anybody else have any comments? Thank you, Bob. I appreciate that. Well, there's cookies in in the break room, and if you get a chance, walk through the Red Sea. It's a little bit better than this right